The royal palace of Varin floated above the clouds of Asera Prime, its towers glowing faint blue under twin suns. Inside the grand chamber, the air was heavy. A quiet panic filled the halls. The alien princess lay on a crystal bed, her skin pale like fading light. 20 alien doctors surrounded her, whispering in strange languages. Each tried a new pulse machine, a new serum, a new chant, but her heart kept slowing. The king of Asera stood near the window, his hands trembling behind his back, his eyes red and hollow. He had offered all treasure, all knowledge, but nothing worked. The doctors promised miracles and delivered silence. The queen wept softly, and the hum of life support echoed like a clock counting down to doom. In the far corner of the chamber, a human janitor mopped the floor, his uniform dull and stained from years of work. His name was Elias Gray, a single father from Earth who had come to Asera to earn a living for his little daughter back home. He was invisible to everyone, a background shadow, yet his eyes watched carefully. Trained by years of love and loss, he saw something odd. The princess's breathing was wrong. Not the failing of organs, but the struggle for air. He stepped closer, frowning. The guards glanced at him, but ignored his presence. He whispered to himself, "She's not dying. She's suffocating." The thought hit him like lightning. One of the alien doctors shouted that her pulse was gone. Chaos erupted, lights flashed red, machines wailed, and still no one knew what to do. The king collapsed to his knees, begging for any hope, and in that desperate moment, Elias dropped his mop and ran toward the bed. "Stop him!" yelled a guard, but Elias was already beside the princess. He saw the clear tube in her throat bubbling wrong. He pulled a small cleaning hose from his belt, connected it, and started rhythmically pressing on her chest. The guards reached him, yanked him away. His mop bucket clattered across the marble floor. "Don't touch her," cried the head healer. "You'll kill her." But the monitors suddenly beeped. One weak heartbeat appeared, then another. The king froze, staring. "Wait," he whispered. "What did he just do?" Elias struggled against the guards, shouting, "She can't breathe. Your machines are choking her. Let me help, please." "I've done this before?" His voice broke. The memory of his daughter flashing before him. Nights spent in hospital rooms, fighting to keep her alive with nothing but human hands and courage. The alien doctors argued, pride in their tone. He is a cleaner, not a healer. But the king's voice thundered, "Enough." His eyes locked on Elias. "If there is even a chance, let him try." They released the human, and Elias rushed back. He took apart his cleaning mask, shaped a small pump using the air filters and cloth, and gently placed it near the princess's mouth. The aliens watched in disbelief. The human knelt, pressing, timing each breath by instinct. Minutes passed like eternity. Then color slowly returned to her face, the faint shimmer of life glowing under her skin again. The queen gasped, covering her mouth, tears streaming down. The king whispered, "By the stars." And every healer fell silent, their advanced tools hanging useless at their sides. Elias did not look up. His hands moved steady, his heart pounding. He whispered, "Come on, kid. Breathe. Just breathe." And then the princess's eyes fluttered open for a moment. Her lips parted, and a soft sound escaped. A breath, weak but real. The entire chamber erupted. The doctors stared as if seeing a miracle. One of them muttered, "This cannot be." The human method defies logic, but logic no longer mattered. Life had returned. Guards rushed forward again, unsure if they should honor or arrest him. But the king raised a hand. "Touch him, and you answer to me," he said coldly. Walking toward Elias, "What is your name, human?" The king asked, his voice trembling not from anger but awe. "Elias Gray, janitor, Section B." he replied quietly, still holding the breathing device. "I didn't mean to break your rules. I just couldn't watch her fade." The king looked at his daughter, then at the humble man before him. "You did what 20 of my finest could not," he said. "You saw what we did not see." Elias bowed his head. "Sometimes you don't need to see science, Your Majesty. Just feel the life trying to hold on." His words were simple, yet they struck every heart in the room. The queen stepped closer, whispering, "She is breathing. She is alive." Her voice trembled, then she fell to her knees beside the bed. Sobbing with relief, the doctors lowered their heads in shame, realizing how their pride had blinded them. And the king turned back to Elias. "From this moment, you are not a janitor," he said. "You are the one who saved the royal bloodline." But Elias did not smile. He only whispered softly, "No, sire. I'm just a father who couldn't let another child die." The king looked at him in silence, understanding the pain behind those words. The human bowed once more, his eyes glistening. The hum of machines faded, replaced by the steady, calm rhythm of the princess's breathing. Outside, the suns of Asera Prime rose higher, their light spilling through the crystal windows, touching both the royal family and the human who had changed fate. In that moment, every alien in the chamber realized something their technology had never taught them. That compassion was its own kind of power, and that sometimes the smallest hand can carry the weight of a dying world. The failing light of the princess became the first dawn of a bond between two worlds, a bond born not of science, but of heart. And as Elias stood there, silent and humble, the story of the human janitor who saved a princess began to echo across the stars. The chamber lights dimmed as the alien princess breathed softly, her chest rising in fragile rhythm. No one spoke, not even the king. The human janitor knelt beside her, his hands trembling, sweat rolling down his temple. He didn't care about the guards aiming weapons at him. His only thought was the weak heartbeat echoing on the screen. Then the head healer hissed, "This is madness," and stepped forward, his silver tendrils shaking. "Remove that human. His interference could kill her." The guards moved instantly. But the king raised his hand, his voice deep and cold. "No one touches him," the queen, still kneeling, whispered. "She is alive." And the king nodded slowly. "Alive. Because he dared." The court filled with uneasy silence. Alien nobles whispered, their eyes filled with fear and pride colliding. How could a human janitor succeed where their royal doctors failed? Elias slowly stood, breathing heavy. He looked at the machines around him, the flashing lights, the cables, the strange liquids. He saw complexity, but no soul. He turned toward the king and said quietly, "She needs rest, warmth. Not these machines choking her." The alien healers hissed in offense. One shouted, "You dare insult our science?" Elias's voice didn't rise. He just looked at them with tired eyes. "Where I come from, when someone can't breathe, we don't add more wires, we just help them breathe." The king frowned, torn between trust and fear. The alien physicians looked at one another, calculating. Then one of them whispered something into the king's ear. Something about risk, contamination, punishment. But the king was no longer listening. He had watched his daughter die for days, and for the first time, she looked alive, her face peaceful, her breathing steady. Then suddenly the alarms began again. The princess's breathing slowed. A red line flashing across the screen. The healers shouted, "Her heart is failing again." Elias rushed forward, his instincts sharp. He checked the air tube and found it blocked with alien gel medicine. "It's the formula." "It's too thick," he muttered, without permission. He tore off the line and used his own small air pump again, forcing oxygen gently, manually, his hands moving with care. Guards lunged at him. "Stop him." The head healer shouted, "He's contaminating royal blood." But Elias didn't move. He focused on the girl, his voice calm. "Stay with me, princess, stay with me," he whispered. The room filled with the rhythmic sound of the air pump. And then, a miracle, again the heartbeat returned. Weak but steady, the king's eyes widened. He shouted, "Enough! No more interference from you fools." His gaze burned at the royal doctors. "From now on, he stays with her," the doctors gasped. One of them dared to argue, "Your Majesty, a human janitor cannot be trusted with the royal line." The king slammed his hand on the glowing console, shattering it. "And neither can you," he roared. His voice echoing through the chamber, Elias paused, breathing hard, and said softly, "She needs fresh air. Open the chamber windows." The queen hesitated. "The air outside is unfiltered," but Elias nodded. "She's not fragile. She's just trapped in too much perfection." The king gave the order. The glass petals of the chamber opened, letting the golden light of the twin suns flow in. Warm wind touched the princess's skin, and for the first time, she sighed, a long, deep, peaceful sigh. Elias sat beside her, exhausted, his hands covered in alien gel. He looked down at her face and whispered, "You remind me of my girl." The queen heard him. "Your daughter?" she asked softly. He nodded, eyes distant. "She was sick. Earth doctors said she wouldn't make it, but she did. Because I refused to give up." The queen lowered her head, understanding. Outside the chamber, whispers spread through the palace halls. Servants, guards, nobles all speaking of the human who defied the healers and brought life back to the dying princess. Some called it luck, others called it heresy, but one word echoed the most: miracle. That night, the royal council gathered in secret. The alien nobles, furious and humiliated, one said coldly, "If that human keeps touching the royal blood, he will become dangerous." Another replied, "He's just a janitor. We can erase him quietly." A shadowy figure stepped forward, the head healer himself, his eyes cold and prideful. "Then it shall be done." Before sunrise, back in the royal chamber, Elias worked quietly, cleaning the tubes, checking her pulse. Watching her breathe, the princess stirred slightly, her fingers twitching, her eyes fluttering beneath her lids. Elias smiled faintly. "You're strong, kid," he whispered. "Don't stop fighting now." He didn't see the dark silhouettes moving in the hall outside, nor the silent weapons being drawn. The king entered again, placing a heavy hand on Elias's shoulder. "You've done more than I could ever repay," he said, his voice thick. "If she lives, this empire owes you its heart." Elias shook his head slowly. "Just keep her breathing, Your Majesty. That's all the payment I need." The king smiled faintly and left, the doors sealing behind him, the night air calm and glowing blue. Moments later, the chamber lights flickered, and Elias turned, sensing movement near the door. The air grew colder, the hum of machines fading into a strange silence. He saw a glint metal in the dark. The assassins entered quietly, their faces hidden, their blades humming with plasma. Elias stood between them and the bed, heart pounding, unarmed but unafraid. The lead assassin hissed, "Step aside, human." "This is mercy for your own kind," Elias whispered. "You'll have to go through me first." Outside, the night wind howled through the open crystal windows, carrying the first drops of alien rain, and as lightning flashed across the sky, the janitor of Earth prepared to fight for the life of a princess who wasn't even his own. The Forbidden's Act had begun, and the palace of Asera would never forget the night a human defied an empire. The night storm roared above the palace of Asera. Thunder rolled through the skies. Lightning flashed against the shining towers. Inside the healing chamber, Elias stood like a wall of flesh and will, facing 3 alien assassins whose eyes glowed blue under the dim light. Their plasma blades whispered as they drew closer. The princess lay behind him, weak but breathing, unaware of the danger that crept through her father's halls. Elias had no weapon, only the metal handle of his cleaning rod. Yet his stance was firm, his heart steady. He whispered to himself, "I've faced worse storms than you." The first assassin lunged. Fast like a shadow, Elias ducked. Swung his rod, sparks flew, pain shot through his arm. But he blocked another strike. His mind raced, his body heavy. He wasn't a soldier, but a father who had learned how to fight when life left no other choice. He used the environment, throwing a tray of medical tools. Kicking a chair, dodging plasma arcs, the assassins hissed in anger, frustrated that a human janitor dared to resist them. Outside, the guards were gone, silenced by fear or bribery. The royal halls echoed only with the hum of the storm. One assassin managed to slice Elias's shoulder. Burning flesh and smoke filled the air. He gritted his teeth, stepped back, and grabbed a glass tube filled with oxygen mix, slamming it on the floor. A burst of air and mist blinded the assassins. He dove toward the bed. Shielding the princess with his body, the doors burst open, and the king stormed in with his guards, plasma rifles blazing. The assassins froze for 1 second, and that was enough. Energy bolts struck them down, their bodies collapsing into shadows of blue light. The king rushed forward, grabbing Elias before he fell. "You fool," he shouted. "You could have died." Elias smiled weakly. "Better me than her," he whispered. His voice faint, the queen entered, trembling, looking at the chaos, the broken glass, the smell of smoke and blood. And then her eyes fell on the human bleeding. Exhausted, but still alive, still holding her daughter's hand. "Get him medical aid," the king ordered, but Elias shook his head. "No. She comes first." His wound bled heavily, but he pressed a cloth over it and turned back to the machines. He noticed something strange again. Her breathing was off rhythm. The alien systems pulsed with artificial patterns. He realized the machines were hurting her more than healing her. Elias spoke softly. "Turn these off." The royal doctors hesitated. "Impossible. These are life support." He looked at them with tired eyes. "No, they're dependency traps. You're keeping her body alive, but not her spirit." The king hesitated, looking between his dying daughter and the man who had already saved her twice. Then finally he said, "Do as he says." The doctors obeyed. One by one the lights of the machines faded. The chamber grew quiet. Only the soft sound of rain filled the room. Elias took out a small device from his tool belt. An old human oxygen stabilizer, cracked and rusty. "I used this for my girl once," he murmured. He fixed it near the princess's face, adjusted the airflow, and hummed softly. The same tune he once sang for his daughter at night. A human lullaby filled the alien room, low and gentle. A sound so strange and beautiful that even the machines seemed to listen. The princess's breathing grew steady, her pulse calm. Her eyes moved beneath her lids as if she dreamed. The head physician, who once mocked Elias, whispered in disbelief, How is this working?" Elias didn't look up, he said quietly, "because machines don't care. But hearts do." The queen wept silently. The king placed his hand on Elias's shoulder. "You are teaching us more than any science ever did." Elias shook his head. "No, your majesty, I'm not teaching. I'm remembering. We humans just feel things differently." The alien doctor started taking notes, scanning the human's method, trying to understand the simplicity of his actions. They realized the human approach was based on rhythm, empathy, and connection, something their advanced minds had forgotten long ago. Hours passed, and the storm outside calmed. The sun began to rise, painting the palace in golden light. The princess's fingers moved, her hand weakly grasped Elias's sleeve. He froze, looking down in shock, her lips trembled. And she whispered, "It's warm. The air. It feels like home." The queen gasped. Falling to her knees, she spoke. Elias smiled gently, tears welling up. "That's right, kid. Just keep talking." The king turned to his guards, his voice trembling with power. "From this moment, no one touches this human without my order. He stays, he heals, and he teaches." The guards bowed deeply. The doctors lowered their heads, and Elias just sat beside the bed, exhaustion settling into his bones. The head healer approached him carefully. "Your ways, they are primitive, yet powerful." Elias looked up and said softly, "Sometimes the simplest way saves the hardest heart." The healer nodded slowly, for the first time humbled by a being he once thought lesser. Later that day, as the sun shone through the crystal roof, the princess opened her eyes fully, her gaze soft and weak. She looked at the human sitting beside her, and whispered, "You're not a doctor, are you?" Elias smiled faintly. "No, I just clean up other people's messes." She laughed weakly, a sound like a bell, and whispered, "Then maybe that's what I needed." The king and queen stood together, holding hands, watching the two from a distance. The queen whispered, "He is not one of us. Yet he has saved our child. How do we repay him?" The king's eyes narrowed slightly. "By keeping him alive. For there are many who wish otherwise, unseen by them." Deep within the palace, the nobles whispered again, their pride wounded, their hatred growing. "If the human keeps living, he will change everything," said one. "Then we must end him before he teaches too much," replied another. But for now, in that quiet chamber filled with light, the human janitor smiled. The princess breathed freely. And for the first time in years, the palace of Asera felt peace. The human method had begun, and the world would never be the same again. The sun rose over Asera Prime like a burning jewel, its light cutting through the storm clouds that had raged the night before. The palace gleamed in gold and blue, but inside its heart, tension still lingered like smoke after fire. The human janitor, Elias Gray, sat beside the alien princess, his shoulders still bandaged, his uniform torn, his eyes tired but calm. The princess was awake now, weak yet smiling. She looked at him with quiet wonder. "You saved me twice," she whispered. "Why?" Elias smiled faintly, his voice low and steady. "Because I couldn't save my own." Her eyes softened. "Your daughter?" He nodded slowly. "Back on Earth, she got sick. We had no cure. I promised I'd never watch someone fade away again." The princess reached out, her delicate blue fingers touching his hand. "Then you saved two worlds at once." At that moment, the doors opened. The king entered with the royal council behind him, his voice proud and heavy. "Elias Gray of Earth, you have done the impossible." The nobles stood on both sides, their faces stiff, forced smiles hiding anger and jealousy. One of them stepped forward, bowing too sharply. "Your Majesty." While the human's actions were remarkable, we must not forget his defiance. He touched the royal blood without permission. The king's eyes flashed cold. He touched life when all of you failed to protect it. The hall fell silent. The nobles stepped back, ashamed. The queen spoke softly. "Our daughter lives because of his courage." But the head healer lowered his eyes and murmured, "Courage or luck?" Elias didn't reply. He only stood quietly, wiping the floor with his cloth again. Humble as ever, the king turned to him. "From this day forward, you are no longer janitor. You will serve as royal healer of the princess." Elias bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." But I'm not a healer. I'm just someone who listens when others don't. The king smiled faintly. Then perhaps that's exactly what we need. Outside the chamber, whispers ran through the corridors like venom. The nobles could not stand it. An alien princess being treated by a human janitor was an insult to their pride. Their perfect system cracking under the weight of humility. That night, under the cold glow of Asera's moons, they met in secret once again, their voices sharp and poisonous. "He is dangerous," one said. "He shuns us in front of the king. He brings chaos into order," another added. "Then we remove him," said the head healer, his eyes burning with envy. "Let him die as quietly as he lived." Meanwhile, Elias tended to the princess in her chamber. He had built new breathing devices from simple cleaning tools. Each one more effective than the last. He used warm air instead of cold medical gas. Gentle rhythm instead of machine noise. The princess laughed softly. "Your way feels alive," he smiled. "Machines do what they're told. Hearts do what they must." She watched him work and asked, "Do all humans care so deeply?" He paused. "We care. Because we know what it means to lose." The king entered quietly, watching from the doorway. He saw the tenderness in the human's actions and the peace it brought his daughter for the first time since her birth. She slept without pain, but before the king could speak, the palace alarms blared. A sharp voice rang through the combs. Intruders in the royal quarters. The doors exploded open. Armed guards stormed in, not loyal guards, but assassins wearing royal insignia. Their plasma rifles aimed at Elias. The king shouted, "Stand down!" But they ignored him. The head healer stepped in from behind, his robe torn, pretending shock. "They are traitors, your majesty. They seek to kill the princess." The guards opened fire. Bolts of energy filled the room. Elias reacted on instinct, diving over the princess, shielding her with his body once again. The air burned with light and heat. The king drew his weapon, roaring, "Protect my daughter." Loyal soldiers rushed in. Chaos filled the room. Screams, smoke, shattered glass. Elias lay on the ground, a plasma burn across his back, pain pulsing through every nerve. But his arms didn't move away from the princess. He held her close, whispering, "It's okay, kid. You're safe." The traitors were finally defeated. The king himself shot the last one, fury shaking his hands. When the smoke cleared, he saw Elias on the floor. The princess cried out, "No!" Her voice trembling, Elias coughed, his voice weak. "Still here. Just a scratch." The king knelt beside him, lifting his head gently. "You saved her again." "Elias." Elias smiled faintly. "Habit, I guess." The queen rushed in, pressing a glowing patch on his wound. Tears in her eyes. "Stay still, human," he whispered. "You should save that for someone important." The king's voice broke. "You are important." The princess gripped his hand tightly, her voice shaking. "Please, don't go." He looked at her with kind eyes. "I promised my daughter I'd protect anyone who needed me. I guess she's watching me keep that promise now." Outside the window, the sons of Asera broke through the storm again, golden light spilling into the room, washing over them like blessing. The king stood, his eyes filled with resolve. He faced the trembling nobles who had arrived to witness the aftermath. "You tried to kill the man who saved my daughter," he said, voice heavy as thunder. "For your pride? You spilled royal blood." The nobles fell to their knees, their schemes shattered. The king declared, "From this day, humanity shall stand beside Asera, as equal hearts, not servants." Elias, weak but conscious, smiled faintly at the sound of those words. The pain in his chest softened. The princess leaned closer and whispered, "You changed us, Elias." He whispered back, "No, you changed me." The chamber grew quiet. Only the steady hum of life returning filled the air. Outside, the first peace banners were raised, glowing with light, and as the royal healers worked to keep the human alive, they finally understood the true cure was not in their machines. It was in the courage and kindness of a human heart. The price of defiance had been paid in blood and truth, and the empire of Asera would never forget the human janitor who dared to care more than anyone else. The palace of Asera stood quiet under the morning light. The twin suns rose slowly, painting gold across the wounded sky. The air was still, as if the world itself waited to see what would happen next. Inside the royal healing chamber, soft music hummed through the air. Machines were silent, replaced by the gentle sound of wind and breathing. Elias Gray, the human janitor who had defied death and pride, lay on a medical bed, his chest bandaged, his face pale but peaceful. Beside him sat the alien princess, her eyes glowing softly, her body healed, her hands folded together as she whispered, "He saved me again." The king and queen stood nearby, their expressions filled with gratitude and guilt. The queen whispered, "He gave everything to protect her." The king nodded slowly, "And perhaps he saved more than just her." The chamber door opened. Alien doctors entered quietly, no longer proud, no longer superior. They bowed before the sleeping human. "Your Majesty," one said softly, "we studied his methods, his rhythm, his empathy. We cannot explain it by science alone." The king replied, "You are not meant to explain it. You are meant to learn it." Hours later, Elias opened his eyes, the soft light making him blink. He looked around slowly, seeing the king, the queen, the princess all smiling. The princess leaned forward, tears in her eyes. "You're awake," Elias smiled weakly. "Still alive." "That's a surprise." The king laughed, the sound echoing warmly. "You've survived more than any warrior of this empire." Elias tried to sit up, but the queen stopped him gently. "Rest, please." He nodded. "I'll rest when she's safe," the princess whispered. "I am safe now, because of you." Outside, the city of Asera buzzed with news of what had happened. Word spread like fire across the galaxies. The story of a human janitor who saved an alien princess reached the ears of millions. Aliens who once saw humans as simple workers now looked at them with new respect, new wonder. Days passed. Elias healed slowly. During that time, the king ordered the royal archives to record everything the human's actions. His words, his methods, his courage, they called it the human method. A new way of healing that combined science with heart, logic with compassion. The alien doctors began studying under him, asking questions, learning humility. Elias laughed one day, saying, "Never thought I'd teach doctors how to care." The princess smiled. "You taught us how to feel," one evening. The king summoned Elias to the grand hall. The entire council gathered. The banners of both Earth and Asera hung side by side. The king spoke, his voice carrying through the vast golden chamber. "Elias Gray of Earth, by your courage, you restored the royal bloodline, and reminded us of what life truly means." He held out a small crystal medal that glowed like fire. "By my decree, you are now royal healer of two worlds." Elias bowed humbly. "Thank you, your majesty, but I'm no royal healer. I'm just a dad who refused to stop trying." The king smiled. "Then may all healers learn from such fathers." Applause filled the hall. Even the nobles who once hated him now bowed their heads in shame. The queen approached with tears in her eyes. "Your daughter," she said softly. "We found her." Elias froze, his heart skipping. My daughter?" The queen nodded. "We brought her from Earth. She arrived last night. She is healthy, healed by our best doctors." The doors opened, and a little human girl ran in, her eyes bright, her laughter echoing through the chamber. "Dad." she cried. Elias dropped to his knees, arms open, tears streaming down his face as he caught her, holding her close. "Hey, kiddo. You made it," the princess watched, smiling with joy, her own eyes glimmering with tears. The king stepped forward. "Your daughter lives because of alien medicine. My daughter lives because of your heart. Together they are proof that our worlds belong side by side." Elias hugged his girl tighter, whispering, "Guess we're even now." The hall filled with warm laughter, a sound that reached every corner of the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the alliance between Earth and Ysera became official. Ships carried knowledge, medicine, and hope between the stars. Every healer learned the human method. Every scientist learned to listen, not just to numbers, but to hearts. And wherever Elias went, people bowed not out of fear, but out of love. One night, as the twin moons of Ysera shone high above, Elias stood on the palace balcony with his daughter and the princess beside him, the stars endless and bright. The princess whispered, "Do you miss Earth?" Elias smiled. "Not anymore. The stars feel like home now," his daughter giggled. "Because you cleaned up 2 worlds, Dad," he laughed softly. "Maybe just a little." A gentle wind blew through the crystal towers, carrying the scent of dawn. The king's voice echoed from behind. "Sometimes, the simplest heart heals what all wisdom cannot." Elias looked up at the sky, whispering, "Maybe she was right. Maybe love is the strongest medicine after all." The princess placed her hand over her heart. The same rhythm that once failed her now beat strong and steady. The human looked at her, proud and peaceful, knowing that his promise to never let another child fade away had finally been fulfilled. The twin suns rose again, lighting the palace in gold. 2 worlds stood united by one man's courage, and across the stars, the story of the human janitor who changed destiny forever began its journey. A story whispered in every world as a symbol of hope. The new dawn had come, and its light belonged to them all.